Hi, good evening all.
Good evening. We'll begin shortly.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We're going to start in about another 5 minutes. I'm just giving time for other people to join.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's Warren. Good evening.
Good evening, Warren.
Hi, should I start?
Hi, we're going to convene the meeting shortly.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Suki, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Pat.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Okay, so.
You want to start?
Yes, we're going to start. It is what, 7:05?
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. So we're calling the meeting to order now. And the rules of order for Community Board 9 are in place. And I just want to say that since we are not in person, we're just asking everybody to raise their hands and to stay muted until you are called on. We are also we are going to follow the agenda this evening. I might move some things up and some things back, but we want to stay on subject. And there will be, the community and the and board members and committee members, if you have any questions that you want to ask, we will have time for that. I'm also asking you to, when it is time for questions and answers, that you kind of keep it short so that we can get as many people in as possible. So we're going to start now with old business. Update on resubmission of Fenimore Street Block Association down zoning application. I haven't gotten any updates. How about you, Mia?
The board office has not received any updates from the applicant or DCP.
Okay, so we'll just keep it, it's still pending and we'll just keep it pending. Next we'll have, we will have an update from the pending court case of 54 Crown Street. Is there a representative for that? No?
I don't think
I don't-
there's been
I don't
any,
believe Ms. Boyd is here. Esteban?
She's
I
not
don't think
here.
there's any, I don't think there's any further things from the last time,
So
if
this,
I'm not mistaken.
No, yeah. This is Nicola. Alicia is not here and we don't have any updates in terms of dates for the hearing.
okay, so, all right, so it's still pending then.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Suki, would you like to give us an update? I think you went to, was it 341
Yeah.
Avenue?
So 341 Troy, the board held their review session. And the commissioners didn't have any questions, except I think Commissioner Chanda asked if they had hired an architect and they said yes. And then they said they were satisfied with the applicant's submission and there were no other questions. And during the public session, nobody from the community testified. The applicant's attorney, Jay Goldstein, was there. And he told the commissioners that they had completed the plans for the mechanicals already, that they would clean up the site and take photos and submit them to the board. They were looking for a decision by June 6th. I didn't see one in the BSA's portal, but we, if Mia can follow up with them to see if a decision has been issued and, if they can share those photos with us, and also for the, community to keep an eye on what the cleanup plans are. Normally, if there is an environmental remediation requirement, there would have to be a plan on file with DOB. So that's all. Naomi Baptiste, who lives next to the site, she attended the hearing with me. So that's all.
Okay, just so everybody would kind of know what we're talking about, just give a minute overview so they'll know what we're talking about when we're talking about.
Right. So 341, 349 Troy Avenue, which is on the corner with Carroll Street. It's a large vacant lot. It's apparently been vacant for a couple of decades. And it has currently R4 zoning, which allows them to build probably like 1 to 2 family houses. They had applied for a variance about more than 10 years ago in order to go up to like maybe a 5 or 6 story apartment building. They went back and forth with the BSA. The BSA approved the variance after some changes. Ultimately, the plan was for something like a 5-story building. But then they didn't end up building it. They said that they changed some of their plans because the market had changed. They weren't able to get financing. And So they had to keep going back to the board to ask for extensions. They got a final deadline for, I think, June of 2020. They blew through that because of COVID. That's what they said when they came back to our board. And so that's when we heard the final request for an extension. And at that point, I guess we didn't hold a hearing because there isn't per se a public hearing required, except at the BSA. So that's how it got there.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Oh, and just so, also the reason that they were asking for a variance, when there's a variance, you might all remember, there has to be a special reason for hardship that they can't build under the existing zoning. And the special reason there was that the soil was contaminated on the site. So they would have to spend money for a cleanup. So that's, for anyone that's living near there, I would definitely keep an eye on that. Hopefully Mia can check in with DOB and DEP to see how the remediation plans are going.
Right, and the environmental committee.
Yes, they should.
They should take lead in this. So hopefully
Yes.
that they will keep an eye on it and then let the board know,
Yes.
what's going on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, so we're going to move on now. We do have guests in the house. And you're going to do a presentation for 777 Rutland Road. So Mia, you can lead in this because I'm quite sure they have something they want to show us or they need.
I see Micah Hunter here from NHP. I'm not sure if you'd like to introduce yourself first.
Yes, how you doing? Micah Hunter, project manager here at NHP. Here also today going to speak is Jamie Smar. He's the senior vice president at NHP. And then we have Pastor Denzel Vaughn of Faith Gospel Church, and he also will be presenting today. And I request permission to share the screen for the presentation.
Okay, you.
Sure, I've made you a co-host.
Right.
Okay.
Now, before you start, before you start your presentation, can you just tell us exactly what is it that you're looking to do in terms of zoning, so that when we're listening or listen to what you're saying, we kind of know what you're looking to do?
Yes, I mean, today our goal is just kind of to present the project itself overall, but specifically speaking, we would at some point, given the feedback that we get from today, looking at, potentially going from R6 zoning to R7A, R7X zoning. R6 is more unpredictable zoning, not as favorable, and looking to do a R7X. So that's kind of one of the things in terms of zoning. But again, today is just kind of introduction of the project.
I know, but when we're listening, because we are the land committee, zoning is important for us. So, I mean, we're not going to take a vote today. We understand that we're listening, but when you say R6, I think that the members need to know exactly what it is in a few sentences, what it is that you are looking to do. So if you want to come from an R6 into R7, what are the two? What you need to give a little briefing on what it is.
In terms of R6 versus R7.
Yeah, what you want to do, what it is now, and what it is that you want to hopefully down the road change to.
All right, yeah, so right now it is R6, and we're looking to go up zone to R7X. And specifics, I do actually have the architect who's also on Jorge. He's also on this call as well to kind of give more specifics about the difference.
You haven't introduced Jessica.
Yes.
So.
Oh no, we will. We're going to introduce everybody in a minute. Well, at least you will, Mr. Hunter, in a minute.
Yep.
But I just want, as we go forward, when you're doing a presentation, you have to tell, the committee what it is that you're looking to do, whether you're going to do it now or do it later or never. So when we're looking at your proposal, we also have that in our minds also. So if you want to introduce the rest of your group before we look at everything.
Yep, sure.
Excuse me,
So
Pat, it's Warren.
it's,
Pat,
Yes,
hi, it's Warren. I think I'm the first vice chair of the community board. I think what Ms. Moses is asking for is what benefit derives from the zoning change he requests, as well as what is the community benefit.
Well, we'll be
And what-
discussing that in the presentation.
No, excuse me. The chair has requested that information, and I suggest that you answer it. Thank you.
okay. All right. So, I mean, all right, I'll introduce some of the other team members. I have
okay, you want
Jorge,
to do that and then we can get,
Yeah.
and then you can
yeah, so
start.
Jorge Chang, he's the architect, so he could describe more specifically in terms of the different zoning, but and we also have Jessica. She's also, she's from our land use attorney as well, and she can discuss a little further as well if you need more detail in terms of the overall benefit from changing from R6 to R7X. She's from Goldstein Hall. So
Jessica Loser.
Loser.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Micah. Thank you, Jamie. And thank you, George. I think just a brief 30-second summary of what our application intends to do. It's a two-prong approach. There is an underlying deed restriction on this property that restricts the use to community facility, which is, hospitals, medical use, community facility use, not-for-profits, and religious corporations. And the site has been the home of Faith Gospel for 30 years. As part of the church's ministry to add to the community, they sought a partner to develop the site for affordable housing, fully 100% affordable housing, and partnered with NHP to develop the affordable housing. So the application is two parts. The first part is to modify the underlying deed restriction to allow straight residential and community facility so that the church can remain on the site. And then to expand the building envelope to allow more affordable housing units to go from an R6 to an R7X. In addition to increasing the number of units that can be developed, it also provides more flexibility for the building design. That's our application in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, you can go. I'm going to ask everyone else, please hold your questions until after you have listened to their presentation, and we will take questions later on. But meanwhile, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Pat. I'm going to share my screen right now. Just get it going. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Not yet, Micah.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, here we go. All right, so good evening, everyone. Brooklyn Community Board 9, we're here to talk about 777 Rutland Road. Project vision to be 100% affordable housing project. The structure itself is 188,929 square feet. It's 12 stories at the highest height. The approximate square footage of the uses are going to be, we're looking to be about 154,436 square feet of residential, 12,741 square feet of community and or commercial space, 21,752 square foot of church, and as well as 344,000 square feet of 3,444 square feet of church parking. My name is Micah Hunter. I'm actually a former born and raised, long-time Brooklyn resident, now living in Queens, as Brooklyn's gotten quite expensive over the past decade. I'm from Bed-Stuy, but I used to travel to Wingate High School, play ball every now and then. But I'm a project manager here with the NHP Foundation, and we're here to present this affordable housing project in partnership with Faith Gospel Church, led by Pastor Denzel Vaughn, a constituent Brooklyn Community Board 9. Now I'm going to introduce Pastor Vaughn of Faith Gospel Church to talk about the church, its history, and the vision for this project. Okay, you go ahead, Pastor Vaughn.
It's truly a delight to meet you all and to have the opportunity of making this presentation. One of our members, John L. Allwood, would basically do the presentation at this time. I'm going to ask Mrs. Allwood to come on and to make the presentation.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I just want to quickly introduce myself. So my name is Janelle Allwood. I am the Director of Music Ministry of Corporate Worship at the church, and I have been a member of this church since birth. You know, my dad's the pastor, and I can tell you that our church really does have a heart for the community. And so much of our vision is rooted and grounded in service to others. And so on February 24th, 1997, we acquired this property, which we call affectionately 777 Rutland Road. And ever since moving to the location, we've really been seeking ways to improve it. It's a large property. And you know, when we have the opportunity to do so, our goal is just to maximize the land that we think that God has given us for his glory. So we entered into a joint venture, as you've heard, with the NHP Foundation. And our goal is really to see this location be used for three distinct purposes. One, we want to be able to serve our community by having, by offering 100% affordable housing. We also want to continue our ministry, our religious Christian outreach ministry, and have a worship space, sort of enhance our current worship location. We also want to offer the community a facility to use. So one of the grounding ministries right now for us has been our children's ministry. Over the last several decades, we've just done a lot to serve the families and the youth and the children in our community. Some of the ways in which we've been doing that: we have a lot of back to school programs for children and parents. We offer a wide variety of programs to help parents be able to nurture the whole child, so that each child can be successful. Every year, we sponsor a summer youth camp. We also have sometimes weekly and also bi-weekly summer daily vacation Bible school camps offered in the summer for youth in our community. And our goal is really just to teach, I say students because I'm a teacher, our goal is really just to teach children the principles and foundations of who God is, right? And what his plan is for their lives. We also deliver food for community members. We have various teams throughout the church who do visitation with some of our members in the community in an effort to bridge the gap, bridge the divide, right? We're constantly trying to signal to our community that we don't just like live within these four walls, but we're here with you. And we're your neighbor. And lastly, you know, our goal is to, like we said, use this space to better develop the citizens around us. And we really do hope that you guys will consider our ministry and our goal and some of the things that we want to accomplish, and how it could be a benefit at the community.
Great. So thanks, Pastor Vaughn and Janelle, for that. You know, definitely all the great things that Faith Gospel is doing in the community and wants to do in a greater capacity, I guess, once you know, this project is allowed to move forward. So now, you know, we will also introduce the team composition. You know, so I'll go to the agenda, and we will introduce the team composition and NHP Foundation's capability as a nonprofit co-developer identifying our partnership goals and objectives, Community Board 9 affordability statistics, 777 Rutland Road development project, and finishing with comments and feedback. The NHP Foundation is a non-for-profit affordable housing development organization. We also have a resident services subsidiary named Operation Pathways as well, that provides social services as well as financial planning to residents in our buildings. We currently develop in 16 states, including New York City and the District of Columbia. All of the developments we own will continue to be permanently affordable as part of our mission as a nonprofit developer. The NHP Foundation has equal 50-50 partnership with the current owner of the site, Free Gospel Assembly Baptist Church, a longtime stable community. And we're going to co-develop to build 183 units of affordable housing, as well as new church, community facility, and or commercial space. As a developer, the NHP Foundation seeks comprehensive community development, affordable and workforce housing creation, community engagement and outreach, and entrepreneurial development in all our properties across the nation, as well as 777 Rutland Road. Also, we have a history of successful and meaningful partnerships with MWBEs and have met or exceeded our goals. Switching gears a bit, we did objective research regarding Community Board 9 statistics, and again, you don't have to answer me, but we just have a couple questions. Do you think that much of the area has been affordable in Community Board 9, meaning let's say 30% of constituents' income that goes towards to pay rent in each household? Okay. Another question: how much of Community Board 9's constituents are rent burdened or paying 50% or more of income on rent? So we found that actually 49.6% of the Community Board 9 is rent burdened, and that 943 of the affordable units that have been created throughout the years will be lost through expiring rent regulation. Next question: additionally, do you believe that this area is experiencing overcrowding, meaning more than one occupant per living space, not including bathrooms and kitchens? Well, Brooklyn Community Board 9 is found to be actually severely overcrowded according to this definition, and is close to the top 20 of all community boards in New York City for this statistic. And to provide a solution to the lack of affordability and overcrowding, there's to date, since 2018, there's been a total of 197 affordable rental units created in this community board, and that equates to less than 1% of Community Board 9's total population. Before I discuss how 77 Rutland Road project seeks to address these affordability and crowding issues, I would like to give some perspective of where exactly the site is located. The site is located prominently on the corner of Rutland Road and Schenectady Avenue. And you can see the large red circle on the map to the left. And again, we're kitty corner to another large unrelated affordable housing development that is the Vital Brooklyn Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center site. We are also adjacent to the old Boys and Girls School sports and track field. We plan to finance the site according to the city's extremely low and low income affordability, or ELA, that's the nickname they call it, program term sheet. I used to work for HPD, and this is truly the most affordable program created in order to develop affordable housing at its deepest levels here in New York City. The unit distribution will be roughly 16% for the formerly homeless. Then 23% of all the units will be at 27% of the area median income, or AMI, 15% at 47% AMI, 16% at 67% AMI, and 30% at 77 AMI. I will explain this further in detail on the next slide for you. The formerly homeless units, with 16% of the total project, or 30 units, will be supportive housing units, which are for those who have mental health diagnosis. They will be provided with congregate care service provision, and that means that the services will be coordinated on site as opposed to these individuals being forced to travel across the city for their care. When I mentioned the percentages of area median income, or AMI, I want to show this chart that breaks down the potential income and rents for the project in New York City Metro 2022 numbers without getting into the complexity of explaining the area median income. Here is what the area AMI generally translates to for 777 Rutland Road. I'll go through the most deeply affordable rents and affordable rents at the highest level. So if we look at the chart, to the left, currently 23% of the total project units are at 27% of AMI, which translates to $36,018 of annual income for a family of 4 in New York City. At that income level, studio rents are currently at $465 a month for a studio, 1-bedroom rents at $591 a month, and 2-bedroom rents at $700 a month. The highest income rents on our project are currently at 77% AMI, which translates to $102,718 of annual income for a family of 4 in New York City. And at that income, studio rents are currently at $1,466 a month, 1-bedroom rents at $1,842 a month, and 2-bedroom rents at $2,201 a month. This information is subject to change regarding of timing when the project begins and given our discussion with government agencies. We would like now to set aside some time to hear from you all and any feedback that you may have.
Mike, can I just add one more comment? Sorry to jump in
Sure.
to the chair. Just to reiterate that we're here tonight as an informational session, that our formal ULURP process has not begun. We have a couple of hurdles with respect to the deed modification timing and with respect to the HPD's pipeline. But in the interest of introducing the church and NHP to the community board and to familiarize the community board with the project, we came here tonight just for informational purposes.
Okay, thank you. Mia, can you, there are questions, and can you just kind of take the people's name first, second, third, fourth, so I can know like who wants to ask a question?
Sure. You have Yanela, Ms. Barnes, Mr. Epstein, Beverly, Esteban, Ms. Margulis, Chair Baptiste, and that is, and Simpson, Ms. Simpson, Fruma Simpson after the chair. And those are all the hands for now.
Okay. As we go on, can you call out who's next? And what I'm going to do, I'm going, before everyone else asks questions, since Fred Baptiste, we're going to push you ahead of everyone, mainly because we would like you to introduce yourself as the chair of Community Board 9, and then you can ask your question, and then Mia, you'll say who's first, second, third, and
Sure thing. Got it.
okay, Fred.
Actually, Madam Chair, I'd rather go the other direction. I definitely want to make sure everyone else gets an opportunity to speak and ask their questions first. And I'll defer at the end if my question has been asked. But I do thank you for the opportunity to just address the committee this evening. For all those, my name is Fred Baptiste. I currently serve as the chair of Community Board 9. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. I want to thank the committee for all the work you've done throughout the years, because this is a team that's been together for a while. And I want to definitely thank the chair of ULURP.
Can't hear.
Can you hear me? Better, worse? Anything?
Yes, we can hear you.
It's a little bit louder, but we can hear you.
I'll try and scream. Unfortunately, this is one of those nights I'm going off of my phone Wi-Fi. But one, I'll defer to the end. And if my question is asked, I'll definitely withdraw from that. But I just wanted to say thank you for joining us this evening, to everyone and to the committee for all the hard work.
Thank you, Chair. Yanela Perry.
You. I'm the board president for the Michelama Co-op that's right across from the church. We're 6 stories high, and I'm not sure if our infrastructure and the neighborhood with our parking as it is and the issues that we're having is equipped to be taking on a 12-story. In addition to, you said there were going to be commercial space. Can you just elaborate as to what commercial space is going to be there? Social services, we are over saturated with social services in this neck of the woods. And also, you mentioned mental health. That's going to be on site. I think you need to take a better look at your surroundings to see what other businesses are there. Right across from the church, we have 2 daycare centers as well. And these are babies and young children. So I understand that, business have to come into the community, but I do understand that based on the height, the requirement, how far up you're going, it is going to be an issue for the rest of us in the neighborhood. We would have appreciated, a heads up, as we're right across the street, or I had to find this out just going by the resource fair that Community Board 9 had. I'd like to have further discussion and dialogue as our 288 Michelama Co-op is right across the street. We have a number of seniors as well. And we have parking issues as it is right now. So I'd like to know exactly what is it that you're offering and that would be beneficial to our community, not just a 12-story building. Thank you.
I'd like to jump in here and first introduce myself. My name is Jamie Smar. I'm the Senior Vice President of the NHP Foundation, where I've worked for approximately a decade. I think we wanted to have this dialogue, which is why we reached out so that we could start having some of these discussions. There have been no uses identified for the rental space because we are at the beginning of the process. And, we recognize that many of these issues are important to the neighbors, and we need to have a dialogue about them. I think in addition, we should, I would want to, so that's just an open invitation, and I'm sure that Pastor Vaughn would say the same thing, that we stand ready to actually have some of these dialogues, because again, there is no set use for the rental space. It's right now it's a blank slate. So issues like parking and what could be on the ground floor other than the church, which is already there, obviously, are subject to discussion. But I would like to very much invite our architect, because the building is set back at 12 stories, but at the absolute street wall, it is not 12 stories. We've had a couple dialogue with the Brooklyn Office of City Planning, where they've offered us some very useful advice about how to step the building back so that the sky exposure plane allows the maximum amount of light to the street. So I would like to invite, just in response to your question, George Chang, who's with our architect, to talk about how we've worked to make sure that we're not having a 12-story building that goes all the way up to the street wall.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is George Chang. I am one of 4 principals at Urban Architectural Initiative. We primarily focus on affordable and supportive housing throughout the city. And yes, and I do want to mention that obviously the site is currently zoned as an R6, which typically caps the building height at about 75 feet. So when we had engaged city planning, they had they had, raised many similar concerns about bulk, and we really worked with them to look at where it makes sense to reduce the bulk and where we might be able to increase the bulk. So, and I think it was actually very sensible in terms of both being able to provide the number of units that we're trying to achieve, while also keeping the bulk at a more manageable scale where possible. So at the corner portion of the lot, the bulk is where the bulk of the massing is increased to 12 stories. However, on the interior portion of the lot, essentially more or less beyond 100 feet of Schenectady, we've reduced the scale to approximately 7 stories. So we're certainly mindful of concerns about bulk, about density, but we've worked with city planning to look at sort of the best iteration that can help to minimize shadow or overcast of shadow, as well as to keep in scale with some of the lower density neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barnes?
Good evening, community. I have 2 questions, I believe. Can you hear me? Did I unmute?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, okay. My first concern is that you showed, and thank you for the presentation, the PowerPoint, you showed 27% of these 183 planned units. I think about 29% was for studios and 40% was for a 1-bedroom. Our community is predominantly family raising, and that is contrary to raising a family, a studio and a 1-bedroom. So again, 29% studios, 40% 1-bedroom, that's 124 units out of 183. That's what, approximately 70%. That's one concern. And the next concern is that you talk about you want to go from 6 stories or 75 feet, maybe 7 stories to 12, based on this alleged 100% affordability. But at the same time, it seems that the numbers are based, what is your AMI based on? It looks like over $100,000. That's not affordable for this community. And I don't see why you can't adhere to the current zoning. Why do you have to rezone, especially upzone, for those kind of numbers? Again, the numbers play out to over $100,000 in AMI, I think 130 something thousand, and 70% of your proposed 183 is not family oriented. And that's very concerning to the community.
If somebody want to respond, because we have a lot of people, so
Yeah.
gotta move it.
So I just wanted to
Oh,
respond.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
Take your time and answer all my questions, please.
Not a problem. So the first question, the AMI again, is pretty much is made area median income for cities across the country and defined every year by HUD. And the 22 AMI, again, what I'm saying is it's a complex calculation how they do it, but again, I think the most important piece here is that I think you mentioned something about $102,000.
130,000 is what you're basing the AMI on, and that is contrary to.
No, that's not true. What in terms of you're saying what the AMI is based off. Current AMI that they schedule, again, we don't set the AMI.
I know
set
you
by
don't.
HUD. Yeah, it's
But based on your
HUD,
presentation, you're saying I forget. It's hard to grasp all of it. 27%, and you gave the numbers. That was based on $130,000.
Yeah, but what I want to say is that the rents that we have are set for much lower than that. Is the key that I'm saying. Like, well, right now, again, the rents that we have, for instance, we have our units that are 27% AMI, which equates to $36,018 for a family of 4, and that, those are $400 some dollars, $500, $700. Those are rents for like the lowest. At the highest of the AMI rents are 77% AMI is $102,718 for a family of 4. And again, we set the rents in our project are at the highest level. That is what we set the rents so that people are not spending over 30% of their income of that income on rent. Because, and I also alluded to earlier that in the area, I guess Community Board 9, about half of Community Board 9, what we saw is actually paying over 50% of the income annual income that they bring in per year on rent. And so we seek to be a benefit to provide these that are much lower, which are closer to 30% of people's total annual income on rents for this project. So that's just one of the questions. I believe we've answered 1 or 2 of the questions. And I think
I don't think you can answer the second question, Mike. I believe she asked, what is the benefit of going from R6 to R7X?
Oh,
that's a George question.
Yeah,
Sure.
that is George's question. Yeah, go ahead.
So if we're looking at strictly residential use, comparing an R6, we're looking at essentially a floor area ratio of 3 maximum for quality housing, versus what we're proposing is a R7X would be a R6, sorry, a FAR of 6. But in addition to that, what that also does is we're also proposing that it would be mandatory inclusionary housing. So what that does is that we enter into an agreement with the city that essentially says that these units are affordable for perpetuity, essentially. So it's I think that there's something to be said about that. But in terms of units, I think what we were looking at under R6, we were capped out at about 130 units or so. With an R7X, we can achieve about 185 units or so. So there's a significant increase of units that we can provide to the community, and that's why we're proposing it.
You're offering again
Ms. Bond,
30% studio, 40% 1 bedroom. That's not family-oriented. One last question.
That is a lot of that.
Are you a subsidiary or the parent company of I think is what is an I'm sorry, NHP Group Net? Are you a subsidiary or parent company of that company?
Yeah, we are not associated with that company.
Okay, thank you.
The NHP Foundation is a 501c3 not-for-profit. We were incorporated in 1989.
Thank you, Ms. Mons. And for the rest of everybody, I want to try to get everybody in with at least 1 or 2 questions. So when you're asking the questions, just think that we do have other people that would like to ask a question. Also, when you're giving the answers, if we can kind of get to the point so that we can move on, because we have a lot of people and we're not going to be all night. So I don't know who's next. Yeah.
Mr. Epstein is next. Adam Epstein.
Yes, hi, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to definitely try to keep it quick because I want to respect the time. First of all, I would like to thank the leaders of the church for having such the heart to try to do something to help the community. I definitely think, everyone wants that. Something like a community center. I really just have a lot of questions about, what is really the best thing for the community. And the main question I have is, will the residents of such a building actually be residents of this community? As it was mentioned before, that there are people, a lot of families, or will there be this kind of be forced to fill space? Will there be people from, other places coming in? And connect to this idea is, I myself I'm new to New York, but I've lived in many similar neighborhoods in Atlanta, Houston, and Chicago. And I used to volunteer at a place called Sarah's Circle, for example, where they would it would be housing for mothers, women from abusive homes and their children, and they provided education and counseling, and the houses were beautiful 2 units, townhouse style, and it was an addition to the community that helped everybody. It was beautiful housing. It kept away, negative influences, and it was just a positive all around. So my question is it, do we need to take a few steps back and kind of see what really does the community need and what's best for the community? And also if this is actually going to be directed mainly towards residents, like, is there data on, like, is there lists of people who need housing right now, and like this many units and people? Thank you.
Micah, do you want to talk about the way that New York City markets affordable and the community board preferences?
Yeah, sure. So, I used to work for HPD. Again, if we are to do this project, they'll be doing, again, they'll be running the marketing of this to New York City. And there is currently a 50% preference at I believe, the community district level. And again, that would be given preference to reside in this building. And then outside of the 50% would be open to New York City. So I'll say half, there is a 50% preference. It's half of the units, and then the other half would come from outside of New York City. Well, sorry, outside of the community district from New York City. That's the first question. And then the second question, I think in terms of, again, this is why we're having this meeting today, to, get some ideas of what, could go in the community facility space, and because, that we have not determined yet. And that's why we wanted to do this information session. So we're open to ideas and suggestions of what should be the best thing. But I also want to kind of focus on, I didn't mention the congregate care or social service piece that I mentioned earlier. Again, that congregate care service are for the 30 units, the supportive housing units that are in the building. So again, those are for the residents, that are in the building. Again, is to help them against transitioning themselves. They're coming, again, that are formerly homeless to transition into the community in the best way. So congregate care has actually been shown to be one of the most effective ways of providing services on site, so they could just walk downstairs and get the help they need, as opposed to traveling, from different place to place, and they don't end up get to their location at the end, and they don't get the services that they need. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly.
Beverly, are you there? I guess she's not there.
We can move forward to Esteban and come back. Esteban?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify a few things from these statistics that you keep referring back to. So it says 943 units may be lost in Community District 41, but that's a figure from 2017. In 2019, the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act passed, and those units won't be lost because there's no more deregulation. So that's just like it's important so that we have a good, clear view of what's going on. By the same token, the 49.6% rent burdened, a majority of those are living in non-stabilized housing. And what tends to happen in neighborhoods like ours is anytime that there's any sort of new development, affordable or otherwise, those units end up getting more upward pressure of rent. So that to me is actually like a negative, because that means that they're going to be even more rent burdened. And then I would also just add that as we're going through this, and if it seems like people are very, very passionate about what's going on, and I say this especially to the church folks, my father's a minister, I understand the mission and the purpose, but just realize that this entire Vital Brooklyn project, and that's going to take up a huge part of the district, is we didn't have a say in that because it's a state project. So anything that we do have a say in, we're going to be very, very cautious and direct about. So I just want to give that as a piece of advice or you know, some perspective for you. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
I'm here, guys.
Oh, Beverly, you're back.
Yeah, sorry. I couldn't
Okay.
unmute myself fast enough.
Okay.
Thank you. I have two questions. One, please explain where the support, the social service support will be in that building. And two, I listened to the introduction. I think it was by the architect, and it sounds as if the deed is not modified, the church will not be on the first floor. Can you answer both of those for me, please?
Okay, so the first question, in terms of
The
where
social service support.
yeah, social support, where would it be in the building? That's still being determined. Again, you know, we're having constant conversations with George, and it's you know, something that we're still trying to determine. But you know, again, we're open to feedback. What we will say though is that in terms of the church, the deed is a whole nother separate thing.
Yeah.
The deed.
Why
the
don't
current,
you let George answer that?
Okay, I'll let George
Or
answer that.
can I take a stab at
Go
it,
ahead.
Michael?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the deed restricts use on the church site to only allow community facility, which is essentially what, you know, the church is a community facility use. In order to allow housing, the church has to go through a deed modification process, which includes, there's a ULURP component to modifying the deed. So that at the end of the deed modification process, the church's deed will allow for residential and church on the same site. Does that answer your question?
So no, not really. So if DCAS, that's I'll stab at it again. Thank you. So if DCAS says no, we're not going to modify the deed, what happens?
We wouldn't be this far along. I mean, we wouldn't be able to come to the community board even for an introductory meeting if DCAS was not in support of this application.
That's what I thought. So that means the church is guaranteed to be on the first floor, yes? Because
the church will always remain, the current use, the current uses will be protected in the deed modification process. The church is a partner in this redevelopment and intends to stay on the site for as long as the church and for in perpetuity. As a lawyer, I hate making statements that I can't control, but the church's intention is to stay in the community at this site as a church.
And to give you background, the reason I'm even asking this question is that so many times over the last 10, 15 years, churches have gotten into partnerships with developers and the church ends up being screwed. So that's why I'm asking this question. And I'm asking the social service question as well, because those are the two very big negatives for when promises are made through development.
It's hard, right? It's really heartbreaking what happens to some houses of worship when they are not properly represented and enter into agreements with parties that don't have their interests at heart. And I although no one here knows me personally, I can tell you we've been in these planning stages for years to ensure that both parties, affordable housing and the church, are represented 50-50 throughout the way.
Yeah, I would just like to reinforce on behalf of the NHP Foundation, because I know that Micah went through a lot of information, but the church is a 50-50 partner and a 50-50 owner in this development. So they're not going away. And the church is actually on the first, second, and third floors. They're not in the basement. They have a very prominent location here on the corner of Rutland and Schenectady, which of course is where they're currently located. So they're maintaining their corner position.
I just want to add to that, they're on their first, second, third, and the cellar. So they're expanding their footprint through this development. And I did want to say, in terms of the supportive services component, I don't believe the team has identified a service provider just yet, but we're going to engage them. And I would imagine typical is that we're going to, if it's feasible, they would probably want to open that up to not just the residents in the building, but if there's an opportunity to open that up to the community as well, for those social services. So that's going to be, that's under development, and it requires a little bit more planning, but I would imagine we're going to try to make it as accessible as possible.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Thank you. Ahami Margulis?
Yes, hi, thank you. So just a few points. Number one, they're trying to say that they want to, you hear me, right? You're talking about like there's an issue with overcrowding. So it seems like they want to solve an issue of overcrowding in Brooklyn with overcrowding our neighborhood. I live on Schenectady. I'm right across from the hospital, and I am on the church is on my corner. Right now, it's a beautiful building. It's aesthetically pleasing, and adding that many units, it's going to block our light. I know they spoke about pushing it back, but there's no way about adding floors. It's gonna, and it's just they're going to overcrowd this neighborhood to solve overcrowding in a different area. The other issue is that we do have a halfway house around the corner from us. The police is there constantly. I have all respect for people who are homeless and who have mental illness. They need to be helped. It's just that this is a community with children. It's already feeling unsafe, and that is a huge issue for me, that to have people with, you know, it would be adding to the issue. And literally around the corner, they're taking over the hospital. There's a huge project
Can you ask your
plan.
question, please?
What?
What's your question?
My question is the necessity of this area adding this housing when there is a huge unit going up a block away. That they're turning the entire hospital complex. They're adding mental health. They're adding homeless shelter. They're adding affordable housing. There's affordable housing being added across the street by the hospital. So how does this, you know, is it really necessary in this area? And it seems like they're talking about all the outreach that the church wants to do, which is beautiful. And it seems like that is the part that does benefit the community in itself, and that will stay. If the church stays in its current state, they can serve the community with all their beautiful outreach projects. So I'm definitely just questioning the need of this when there are other projects going on.
Well, I think I could first and foremost respond is, we certainly are aware of other projects in the area. And we do not think that those other projects address all of the affordable housing need either of CB9 or of Brooklyn as a borough. So HPD has been extremely supportive of the church and offering additional affordable units in this corridor. With respect to the homeless.
But just to like bring to like what that other person brought up about, the income unit of 77% of the units are going to people who make over $100,000, and only 26% are going to the other ones. It's not really, it doesn't seem like, it seems like that.
Yeah, that's not accurate. Yeah, the accurate, it's 23% of the units are going to those at 27% AMI, 15% at 44, which I'll give the income equivalents of a family of four. So 23% are going to families of four that make $36,018 a year. 15% are going to families that make $62,698 a year. Family of four. 16% would go to families that have incomes for a family of four of $89,378, and 30% that make $102,718.
I understand. So even the 30% plus the other 15% of the 89, that is not poverty levels in Brooklyn. In other words, like 50% of the housing is going to people who can basically afford an apartment. There's plenty of apartments to find for $2,000. So like, to me, it's like, yeah, I'm sure that's what's sponsoring the people who are homeless and who are less. But my question is like, how many of these people have incomes that are really going to be benefiting from this when 50% is for $100,000 is a very decent income in New York?
I think he said 15%, not 50%. So
no, he said 30% for 102,000 and 15%
and 16 and
for 89.
16%.
16% for 89,000.
Yeah.
Sorry, 45% is 46% is going to people who do not need subsidized housing.
Yeah, I
They can
wouldn't say that,
afford.
I
would
wouldn't
not
say that they,
yeah.
yeah, that they wouldn't need it, because New York City is a very expensive city. Again, these AMI limits were, well, the way this is structured is really towards HPD's term sheet, and they've done extensive research on trying to target all the groups that essentially have been, rent burdened or being squeezed out of the city. And again, the 27 and the 47 are extremely low income and low income, and the others are low income. But what I'm saying is these are specific groups that were determined by the city of New York as being, again, facing great affordability issues. So again, and then there's also
Hold on. I'm going to say this once again. We're running against time. I mean, there's other parts that I have to do to this meeting, and I'm going to ask the people that are asked to please ask your question, and just remember there's other people. I have about, how many other people I have left? I'm going to end at Denise Mann.
Oh,
I
okay.
think.
I'm Diane. I was going to
I'm
ask.
sorry, Diane. Denise?
Yes.
I mean, how many people are there? 1, 2, 3. So
There are, hold on, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are still 11 hands.
okay, there are 11 hands. So my thing is that, and also to the people that's responding, can you please ask your question and let the other people speak? If we have time, we can go back over, but I do have another part of the meeting that I have to address. So please ask your question and let's move on. Thank you. Who's next?
Thank you. Chair Baptiste, you still want me to circle back at the end for you?
Circle back, thank you.
Got it. Fruma Simpson. We're unable to hear you, Fruma.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Now we can, sure, go ahead.
Hi, as was mentioned before, this neighborhood is very saturated, and I know that the square footage for the parking was given, but I wanted to know how many parking spots actually will be there as opposed to square footage, because as a layman, I don't know how much square footage equates to parking, and it's already very hard to find parking for that. Additionally to that, this also continues to, I don't understand why we need to rezone to R7X and not keep R6, as it seems like you already have the option to have a lot of units. And I don't think it's these extra units are necessarily going to make the neighborhood better or have a profound effect in the neighborhood, benefiting the neighborhood in a profound way, but it would actually maybe make it a bit more saturated. And another question that I have is is there a plan to keep?
Questions? Hold on, Mr. How many questions do you have?
Another 2 questions.
Oh, no, okay, please, I have to move on to someone else.
Okay.
Ask your question.
Is there a plan to keep the children safe, since there's going to be a formerly homeless population that require mental health? And another one is your AMI shows the prices for a 4-family, how much their income is of a family of 4, but the prices that you're trying to provide here are for a studio or 1 bedroom. So how are you equating AMI, a family of 4, that they're going to be living in a studio or a 1 bedroom? Thank you.
So Mike is quoting the 4-family AMI. It is then adjusted by household size. So obviously a family of 4 would not be living in a studio. So that 4-family AMI is then adjusted to a household factor of 1 for a studio, and then 1 or 2 for a 2, and then 2 to 4 for a 2, and so on. So it's obviously not applied equally across it is adjusted, and that is that's kind of how that's done. I think you also asked about the homeless units. It is a recurrent requirement of the city that every new affordable construction project contain a set aside to deal with this formerly homeless individuals, and that in addition, those services be provided that are being provided by every project, new construction project in the city, not just in Brooklyn, but in all 5 boroughs, have a on-site social services component that Micah referred to actually provide services on site. So there will be a detailed social services plan about how to provide for those 16% set aside of units. Again, that's a requirement of every new affordable project, not just those in Brooklyn, but every affordable project in the 5 boroughs to have a set aside. And there will be a provision of how to, from a security plan to actually 7-day-a-week security for the project, which we would be providing anyway. So that is a plan that will be developed.
Just because you know there's a school right around the corner. I hope you know that.
Yes, yes, you're very familiar with it. I worked for the Board of Ed school construction for 15 years before I had this job. So yeah, I'm very familiar with that particular, there's actually 2 schools around.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Sure, we have Shaya's iPhone.
Yeah, hi. So I have similar concerns like those before me have mentioned. I live on East 46th Street in Rutland, which is like right there. And I have 5 children, thank God. And since the halfway house moved into the block block became very unsafe for my children to be outside alone. There's violence, there's crazy things going on.
What's your question?
Almost a daily basis. So my question is, how are you justifying bringing more of these individuals into our community? Like when we already have been inundated with so many. Here we have one on our block, 1, 2, 3 blocks away. Well, how are you justifying that when we have there's a block full of children? There's about probably close to 50 children on this block alone. How are you justifying?
Can you just ask your question, let them answer, because I have to move on.
Okay, so
Thank
if you could answer that, if you can answer that question, I'd appreciate it. How are you justifying bringing in more of these individuals that need more support in mental health and all these things in a community that's full of children? If you can answer that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, with respect to the statement, these individuals, these are people who are formerly homeless. They're receiving services, and they will continue to receive services that will help them continue to sort of be productive members. They're not clients of the halfway house. Obviously, that's a separate provision of social services. But these individuals are classified as formerly homeless, and there's a requirement that they continue to be able to receive services, even though they're having individual apartments with leases that they will be responsible for paying rent every month. And again, as I mentioned in my previous conversation, is a requirement of every new construction affordable project to have a set aside to serve formerly homeless individuals. And we also have to provide services to those people on site.
Thank you. We're going to move
That doesn't
on.
really answer my question, but okay.
Excuse me, we're going to move on. Again, it's 8:15 now. I have like 10 minutes. So please just ask your question.
We're asking questions, we're just not getting answers. So far, all the people before me, their questions are being dismissed. But if that's the way you want to
Please
continue.
mute yourself. Mute yourself. Who's next?
Suki is next.
Who's next?
Hi.
Oh.
So my question, I have 2 quick questions. The first is, have you obtained a written release of the deed restriction yet from DCAS? and the deed does require you to pay some sort of reasonable sum of money for the release. Have you had any conversations with them about how much that's going to be? And will you forward us those documents if and when you receive the release? The second question is, we've heard a number of people from the community already saying that they would prefer that you build this at the existing R6 if you get permission to build. Would you be willing and able to do that in order to work with the community? Those are my two questions.
Jessica, do you want to talk? There is no release of deed. Do you want to talk about the deed modification?
Sure. I can say that we're not yet up to the part in the process where we have those negotiations with DCAS. But if the document is a publicly available document, we will gladly share it with the community board. Because I haven't seen the document and we haven't negotiated it yet, it's difficult to make assurances that that's something that we would release. We would also need DCAS's permission. So I feel like that's a question that we can answer when we come back to the community board in the ULURP process.
But Jessica, could you just quickly verify, there will continue to be a deed restriction on this site. It's not going away.
That's correct. The deed restriction is not going to be lifted, just modified to include affordable housing.
Thank you. Who's next?
Mr. Moskowitz, Menaka Moskowitz.
You didn't answer the second part of my question, which is, would you be willing and able to build the affordable housing at the existing R6 zoning, since we've had a few community members saying so far that that's what they would prefer?
We're willing to have a discussion about all options, but at this point, we've put forward a proposal for the R7X.
A proposal to who? To us?
And also, I mean, I want to say this too. You know, I think we did look at I mean, funny, when I worked at the city, I looked at this project. It R6, the amount of units that we could get, it would be hard to make this project feasible. And then on top of that, again, our goal here, I guess, is to provide as much affordable units as we can to this community board, district, and New York City. So I think it's a combination of those two things, if that answers it a little better to what.
Very quickly, if I may, are you seeking any other sources of subsidy besides the ELA subsidy? Like any subsidy, any similar subsidies from the state, any loan programs, any federal programs?
Yes. Yes. So in order to even finance affordable housing, it's very it's pricey in order to do it. So there's levels of subsidy. There's also the HDC, which is they provide tax-exempt bond financing. We're looking also at they have a capital reserve subsidy as well that we'll be going after. And there's also reservoir funding. There's definitely several layers of subsidy. It's not like a market rate project where you charge people a whole lot of money and you get these big loans. We have to really layer as many sources as possible in order to provide affordable housing to.
Understood. Okay, so there are options. All right, thank you.
There is no subsidy from the state.
He just said something about the capital reserve.
Yeah.
There's no
HDC is
city.
yeah. No, the HDC is a quasi state type of agency, so it's kind of hard to say that they do provide money to the project if again that's who we would be financed by, but it isn't one or the other. In order for affordable housing to go through, it has to be some level of HPD and HDC, but this is not a state project like the project Vital Brooklyn, which is across from us.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Menaka Moskowitz.
Yeah, thank you very much for this meeting. I would like to, my main concern is about safety. I was attacked right at that corner on East 46th Street and Rutland, and my face was plastered all over the place. And everybody knows that I was attacked. I was almost killed. And I want to thank, first of all, the Pastor Vaughn, for giving the police department all the videos that I was able to that to convict him for such a hate crime. My concern is really safety, that if you're gonna have overloaded people and more people in this community, I don't know what kind of characters you're gonna have in this community. So especially if you're gonna have low income teams, if they're gonna be stabilized people or not. That's first of all. Second of all, about parking spaces, when I moved there 7 years ago, there was a lot of parking spaces. Now it's very hard to find parking spaces, especially at night. Will there be a lot of parking spaces in this building or not?
The parking that we're providing, the surface parking, is reserved to the church.
Yeah. And also
and
just
then they will then, obviously they will use it for their services. As to what it can be used for the other days of the week is subject to discussion.
and just to add, I mean, I'll let George just confirm, but this project is not required to build additional parking, and as far as I'm concerned, and then also, I mean, it's real. If we were to add additional parking to this project, I mean, I guess it would have to be like underground parking. We would not be able to afford building affordable units or adding affordable units. And again, the overcrowding piece, if the only solution to overcrowding in New York City is the addition of new housing, I want to add that because I don't think we haven't mentioned that, because either people are going to flee New York City or you have to create new housing. And most of the new housing that's being generated in this area is high-end market rate type of housing. And again, we're trying to offer new housing that is affordable, given that the people, we set in the rents for people that they spend less than 30% of their income on the rent. So I just wanted to talk that. And then the safety piece, it's funny, I was also in the supportive housing program in the city at one point, and we found that there were a lot of people, it was more actually safety concerns for the people that were supportive in their own building from people in the community seeking them, because a lot of them, these are vulnerable populations. So actually the security that we have, a 24/7 will be on site, was actually to protect these vulnerable individuals, and also people in the building, obviously from external sources coming in that way. It sounds weird, but that's kind of what we experienced when I was with the city. And again, these individuals getting congregate care, is it's the best, it leads out to the best outcomes for people that have, supportive housing, homeless with, formerly homeless with mental illness, meaning that they don't, again, have to travel outside the building to get the care that they need. They can remain in the building, go get the help that they need. And actually, it's better that they assimilate with other people that, in the general population, because in Olmstead laws, if you look at that, the federal laws, there were all these rules made because they would just put all these people that have these illnesses in one place and put them in the edge of the city. And that just made it worse, not only for them, they were getting stigmatized, they were getting, put aside, and again, not getting the service, the care they need. And they had to travel across the city to get the service that they need. So this actually addressed both of those issues. Again, these 30 units of 183 units will be spread evenly throughout the building. So again, you may not even be able to tell who they are. And that's the way we want it, So I just want to make sure that, these.
Thank you. I'm gonna have to cut you off on that.
My concern is the security outside the building, not inside the building, for the neighborhood. That's it. Thank
Can
you.
we just say that, Mr. Moskowitz, on behalf of the project team, it's such a terrible thing that you had to endure, and that as hate crimes go up in the city I think it's something that we're all very nervous watching, and it's only through community partnerships that I think that we're all stronger and can eradicate this hate. It's sort of fortuitous that this was it happened on the corner in front of the church property, and that hopefully started a relationship between you and the pastor and the church, and that moving forward, having a stronger church presence can only make the community safer. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna have to cut this. It's like more and more people are getting added on now.
I just want to
We're
confirm.
gonna have to cut it. We're gonna have to cut this. Who's next? Please
So,
answer your question
Attorney Margulis, Mr. Margulis?
and respond quickly, please, because I don't want to cut anybody off, but I'm gonna have to.
I'm gonna make it very quick. I don't want to take anybody's time. First question is regarding the parking spots. Was not responded. I think three people asked the same question. There's 180 units. So
I
how
can't
much?
hear you.
Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Now I can.
Okay. The first question is regarding the parking. There were three people that asked the same question. There are 180 units. How are we planning to give parking for all these units? How much parking spots is going to be? That's question number one. Question number two is if you are applying for permits for off hours and night for the building as well. I just want to know if you guys are doing this as well.
I think you asked about permits for off hours and nights. So this would be a residential building. So I don't anticipate there would be any sort of nighttime activities. We've committed to the church that whatever uses are and the rest of the project would have to be compatible with the church. So I don't think that would allow any nighttime activities. Are you talking about bars or nightclubs or stuff like that?
About building off hours. It's going to take like 2-3 years to build if you are applying for off hours permits to build.
I understand the question. Yeah. So the honest answer is I don't know because we're so early in the process. We don't know the answer to that. The church has been provided with 24 surface parking spaces in the rear of the property. Those spaces are actually reserved to Faith Gospel. They are, again, for their use during their weekend services and whatever services, they would be reserved to those. And then outside of that, they could decide what and how and who could use those spaces during the week.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just very quickly?
We got to move on.
I want to clarify. Answers the question. I want to clarify that under zoning resolution, that means it's permissible by zoning for affordable and for new senior affordable buildings. Parking can be waived from the requirement. So this is as of right. I want to make sure that people understand that it's the parking is not required for affordable and for senior affordable housing per zoning. And we are electing to because we're in the transit zone, we are electing to not provide parking because it's allowed by zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Katie B.
Yes, good evening to the chair and vice chair and all the parties that are on the line. I am a resident directly across from the church. And I keep hearing this word community overly used tonight and affordable housing, but I'm very perplexed with being a resident here from the 70s. So I was here before the church got here, as well as other neighbors that's on this immediate block that the church is on. And when you say community, how is it that you're talking about community, but I don't feel like the immediate community has been addressed properly? Has this direct community of homeowners predominantly been asked what we feel would best serve our community? It seems like it's more outside people who are making decisions that we who live here are going to have to deal with. And my first question is I heard the pastor speak, I heard the pastor's daughter speak, and I've seen a few things that they have offered, but as far as I know, it hasn't been addressed that the community has been able to go into whatever they're doing. I've seen them do summer camps and maybe the car washes over the years, but I don't know anything else that Faith Gospel Assembly has offered this community, and I have small children. So when I see them having things, I don't feel a attitude of inclusiveness. I feel like it's more exclusiveness. And my other question is directly to the church at large. How many of their members live in this community?
Somebody gonna answer the
Yeah,
question?
yes, there we go.
We have quite a few who live in the community. We even have members who own daycares and other activities in the community. We are integrated with the community.
Okay,
So,
like I said, the word community can be defined by depending on who is using the word. When I'm saying, do you have your members, which I've lived here, like I said, since the 70s, and I see you come and go, and I actually haven't seen a lot of coming and going, maybe due to the pandemic, but your community, I'm not just talking about, okay, they may be Community Board 9 or they may live in the community of the borough of Brooklyn. How many of your members live directly in this specific community that this affordable housing slash mental services, whatever you guys are going to or try to offer? And my thing is, we already have, like the other people have spoken, we already have a situation. This neighborhood has been changing since the halfway house on 46th Street has been here. And we already have to deal with the homeless population from the men's shelter on Albany.
So what's your question?
I would like to just say,
okay,
we okay with outreach, and I am a minister, so I understand perfectly well what outreach community is and what the church job is to the community. But what I believe what you are proposing is not for this direct community. This is not going to work here. This is a family-centered, primarily home ownership, direct vicinity of the church. This is not what we need. We already have an issue with high crime, and we all know crime is all going up in Brooklyn, but we're dealing with this specific community right here between Rutland Road, 46 Schenectady.
we heard you. What's your
area.
question? Or you just want to make a statement?
My question, Madam Chair, again, is when they keep using the word community, the church, as well as NHP and all of the parties that are involved in this, have you reached out to your direct neighbors to even get a survey of what we would like or what we feel the community as a whole would be served? Because I feel like we're being left out.
I can answer that question. It's all a process. In other words, we are developing this land to benefit the community. We are going to have parsonage units there as well, so that the people associated with the church would be living in the community and working in the community. So I think that's a question which is really a moot point at this stage. You know, all that will happen after the development takes place.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? We only got 3 more people. I'm closing
Soren,
down.
Mr. Soren, please go ahead.
Please, excuse me, before you start, please just ask a question. Thank you.
Ma'am, with all due respect, I'd like to be able to speak a full sentence, okay?
Oh, you can speak a full sentence, but not 3 paragraphs. Thank you.
That's very welcoming. Thank you very much. My question is, Jumaane Williams, there's new legislation, a new environmental type of statement that has been added to the environmental process. In addition to the ULURP, and in addition to the SECRA, there's a special statement and a special analysis that is afforded to neighborhoods, especially neighborhoods of color, to see how certain neighborhoods are affected by development. Will you be involved with a detailed analysis according to Jimani Williams' new environmental statement, whose effective date is June 1st, okay? Because what you have is you have 900 units that are coming to Kingsborough West. You have 322 units that are coming to Utica Crescent. That's 1,222 units that are a 5-minute walk. The majority of the people in the community are working class that use cars. What kind of impact will this have? Question number one, what kind of impact will this have on families who use cars, who go to churches, who go to synagogues, and who now are not going to have parking spaces because you're not going to provide any? And it may not be your fault. You have to take a look at the impact of the other 1,222 units. In addition to those 1,222 units, you have 2 supermarkets. So there is a big parking problem. If people don't have cars, they can't work, and they move out of the community, and that's the displacement of the Black community. And it's an issue that is very important. That's number one, okay? And and number two is it correct when you say that you have to convert this from a community facility space to residential? The existing space is a playground for kids. There's bleachers there. There's kids who play baseball and softball and families that go there. What kind of impact will this have on those parents being able to drive there and find parking spaces when it's not there? Number three is in terms of families, 22%, 24% of the families, 24% according to the U.S. Census in Kings County is families of 4 people or more. 22% in the current zip code of 11203 are families of 4 people or more. How many units do you have for 4 people or more? And the answer is, according to your chart, for 3 bedrooms, you have zilch. You have provided 0 for 3 bedrooms. The other 2 units, the other 2 massive developments provide some 3 bedrooms. You have chosen profit over the quality of life of people in the community. And I think you should expressly tell people, especially Ms. Moses, who works for the community and is a fiduciary, if the community board votes no for this on ULURP, and if the city council says we're voting no, can these people build these units if it's not converted from a community use to a residential? Yes or no? Pat Moses, you're the chair. If the community board says no to the ULURP on changing the use from a community use to residential, and if the city council people say no, we're not going to do it, can this be built? Yes or no?
I'm not going to answer that. I'm just, right now, I'm taking questions and answers.
If you can't answer that, how about Fred Baptiste? He's the parliamentarian.
Right now,
Fred, can you answer that question?
First of all, let me just say something. With all due respect, we can deal with that. But right now, because I need to move on, if you want to address it to me, then this is not the proper time to address it to me. Right now, we have guests. But right now, we're not going to address that right now. To me,
what the community rights are?
Listen, I'm not going to argue with you. I asked you to address it to the people that do the presentation. That's all.
Okay, let me ask the question to the people who do the presentation.
Okay, right now, I'm going to move on.
Let me ask the question to them. You said let me ask it. Let me ask it.
You're being rude, so I'm going to move on.
Okay, I'm not going to be rude to you. Let me ask the question. Okay.
Ask the question and let's move on.
Here's the question. Okay. The question is, if the community board votes no on the ULURP, and if the city council votes no on the ULURP, okay, can you change the deed, which is currently community use, to residential if it's rejected by ULURP?
So again, we're not here tonight for ULURP. We're just here for informational purposes. In a year from, whenever we're ready to submit our ULURP application, then we can address those questions. Hopefully the board will vote on separate items. There would be a rezoning item in the ULURP, and then there would be a disposition item, and they would be separate votes.
Right, we're going to move on because right now, there's a whole process that has to be, you're just presenting right now. There's a whole process that has to go through. Let's move on to the last 2 and.
Or Diane?
I don't get to ask more.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. I missed the earlier part, so I'm not sure if my question is going to serve any purpose to anyone, and perhaps maybe it will, because it will serve purpose for me. I've heard since listening to the questions and answers, I've heard modified deed, I've heard development, I've heard church, and clearly, I just simply need clarity. I know I'm not going to get it tonight. Perhaps maybe a future town hall meeting or something of that nature needs to be held so that we can get better clarity and understanding to all of this. Because for me, this is really a whole lot of stuff to try to compact in one meeting. That's what I would have to say, because my question really would be about the church. The church is a 501c3 not-for-profit. So I'm not sure how this is working in terms of the church being in partnership with whom, or is someone in partnership with the church? That's what I would need clarity on. So the deed piece and the church, I'm not sure if the church, if the deed is, it belongs to, who does the deed belong to? The church?
The church.
Okay, so then clearly the church is going to have to do something before all of this even take place. I would imagine that perhaps the Attorney General's office would need to be a part of this. Okay, so
absolutely,
we are kind of like, you know, putting the cart before the horse in some degree. Okay, so I will say that. So that part is what I would like to be presented to the board. You know, once the modification of the deed, because I don't think any of this can happen simply because the church is a 501c3 not-for-profit. So
just both parties, the developer is also a 501c3 not-for-profit.
okay, okay, so that's good. Then that's good. So now we are talking 50-50. So is that the partnership agreement? 50-50?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, okay, so 50-50 for the church. And then who's the second partner?
The NHP Foundation, which is incorporated as a not-for-profit developer in 1989.
Okay, so it's just the two in partnership, no one else, no other LLC or no other subsidiary or anything like that. It's just the two, the church and NHP Foundation.
Diane, I'm gonna have to cut you off.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. And
Ms. Lindsay?
Ms. Lindsay, you're last.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
All right, I just have I'm not quite understanding how someone making 36,000 and have children have to pay 700 for a 2-bedroom, but a studio, which probably be occupied by a single person, is gonna pay 400. Shouldn't it be the opposite?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we described a little earlier, that again, you know, the way these are set is based on household composition again. So again, if it's you know, if it's a studio, so that usually means again 1 or 2 people, right? So
Right.
therefore, you know, the rent is sort of a ratio. I won't get into the complex part of it, but essentially that's what allows it to be much less at 465 for that income group. I'm talking about and when I said family of 4, it's a general, and then based on that family of 4, they take that 36,018 and apply a household factor to it, and that's what causes the rents to be smaller as the smaller units. But as the units go up, like you said, at 1 bedroom is $591, and then as rent goes up to 2 bedrooms, it's $700, because there's even more individuals can fit in those different unit types.
I understand. I don't mean to go on. I just don't understand how someone that has 3 children or 2 children supposed to pay 700, a single person supposed to pay 400. I just don't understand that.
Or it could be 2 adults in that, and you know, again, it all depends. You know, again, for a 2-bedroom, can always just be a single mother in a family, which, you know, we hopefully there could be that can able to afford. But again, it all depends on who's in that household. And HPD, when they go and they look at the incomes, they're gonna look at the incomes of the entire family, who's working in the family, and then that again, that's gonna play into that income piece. So yeah.
All right, I don't understand, but okay, I'm not gonna go on.
Thank you. Thank you. We're gonna end now, and I just want to thank you for bringing the information for 77 Rutland Road, you know, to our attention. And I think Fred, you're the last one at this point, because I have to close the segment out.
No, Madam Chair, go right ahead.
I can't hear you though.
Any better? I'm sorry, I
Okay.
apologize. Yeah, you can skip me for this evening. I think that there are just a lot of questions. Obviously, I think the takeaway is that there's a lot of questions. We're gonna need some more conversations on this. But I do thank NHP and Faith Gospel for coming this evening. And so I'll definitely, we'll definitely discuss this. Well, I actually leave that to the chair, or capable chair, in terms of coordinating future conversations where we can discuss more fully as well. But thank you everyone for coming and for all the questions as well.
I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming forward. I know that y'all are in the beginning processes of the plan. So, as you move on, we would appreciate that you keep our community board abreast, and our community would like to have some input once you kind of get the plans, because there's a number of issues that will have to take place. There has to be a public hearing. There's a lot that has to go on. But we would appreciate it, especially the people that live right within the church and they're right next door to you. I don't know where the pastor is at this point, but to me, your surrounding community people, if you could really keep them in the loop so they don't feel like they're outside. And I understand when they say community, because they're right there next door, knocking on your door. So we'd like to, again, thank you for coming. And so we're going to move on now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Suki, are you still there?
Yes, I am, Pat.
Okay, can we just take attendance for our, committee members, so I'll know who's here and who's not?
Okay, so we'll start with you, Pat Moses.
Yeah.
Warren Burke. He was here before I saw him. Call him again later. John Craver. John Craver. Thought I saw him before too.
I'm here, Suki. Yep.
Oh, hi, John.
Hi.
Lorianne Wolseley. Lorianne Wolseley. Okay. Elise Robertson.
Present.
Esteban Heron.
Present.
Nicola Cox. Thought I saw her earlier, but
she was here earlier.
We'll try again. Suki Chung here. Tom Thomas. Tom Thomas. Thought I saw him earlier, but
Here.
okay. Hi, Tom. I think that's it.
Okay, so this is basically, as far as I know, it is our last meeting until the fall. I want to thank everyone that served on the committee, and I also want to thank the community residents who had been participating. And hopefully we'll see you. I don't know who the chairperson will be when we come back, but hopefully if anything is happening while we're on our little leave, I don't know if we'll be contacted or not. But again, I just want to thank everyone. Before I get a motion to adjourn, I want to know if the committee members want to say a little something. Oh, Esteban, I'm glad you're feeling better. It was good to see you. And I do want to say that the community fair was really excellent.
I could hear it from my apartment.
You heard it from your part. It was really great. I mean, we came out in shifts, but it turned out excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, we were there. We had a table real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I just want to thank the chair for being the chair this past year and for keeping us on our toes, and I'm sure we generally get out of here by 8 o'clock.
Yes.
We appreciate it. So thank you so much.
we're a little late tonight. I didn't want to cut yeah, we are normally out of here by 8. But I felt that the community, there was a lot of community residents that were really concerned, and I wanted them to have some kind of say, you know, so that's why we went a little overboard. And Suki, you want to say something before we close?
Yeah, I just want to say I did send an email about this to our committee members, but the mayor has released the outlines of a zoning plan with 3 major zoning initiatives. So that's something that we should keep an eye on. It could be a big change, it could be not much change. But certainly I hope that the district office will send us emails if there are any updates. And Fred, would you, like, if the ULURP clock starts on anything citywide or pertaining to our district, will you call us in so that we can comment?
Absolutely. I'm not sure if I don't know of anything that's on the radar. And it's been one of those things that we've tried to address with various entities in terms of they need to be respectful of the fact that the board is on hiatus for those 2 months. So it really is a disservice to the community to cheat them out of that time by starting clocks in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, I certainly hope that city planning doesn't start any clocks before September.
No, but absolutely, we will make sure that the board is kept appraised of any changes.
Okay.
And,
I also
Thank you.
want, yeah, I also, before we close, I think there's supposed to be a public hearing on June the 21st from 6 to 8. Is that the Clarkson Estates project? So if you don't have that information, you want to be a part of that, please notify the community board, and so that you can be a part of that and to speak if you have anything to say in reference to that. Anything else before we close out? And Mia, I want to, Ms. Hill, I want to thank you. You've been very, very patient with us, especially me, you know. So I definitely want to thank you. And I'm going to miss all of y'all. And hopefully there's going to be a new chair. You know, it's not so easy to sit in this chair, you know. So somebody needs to step up and think about it. And
Thank you, Mrs. Moses.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much,
for
Pat.
being solid. It's
Thanks for your
appreciated.
Pat.
okay, but listen,
Yes,
y'all
thank you,
didn't hear the
Pat.
last part I said though, right? Y'all hear the last part?
What was
Somebody
that?
needs to think about, you know, and at least
Rest-
give it a
rest
try. You know, give it a try. So can I get, anybody else want to say anything before we dismiss?
2 seconds.
Yeah,
if I may,
yes.
Madam
Yes.
On behalf
you'll
of
be back.
Faith, on behalf of Faith, I'd like to say thank you very much to the Committee Board 9 and to the ULURP committee for making this introductory presentation and for your feedback, giving us a better sense of how to proceed. Thank you.
And don't forget what I said, Reverend. You got people right there in the community, right? Invite them into your church. Put some signs
Oh,
up.
we have been doing that. They can tell you.
Okay. Okay, Fred, you want to say something?
20 seconds or less. Pat, thank you so much for coming back. 'Cause I know this is definitely something you thought you had walked away, and we were able, out of your sense of duty, you came back and you chaired this committee. So I thank you so much on behalf of the executive committee on this board and to the members of the ULURP committee. You guys work hard. You guys are really an example of what happens when we reach out and we bring the talent that we have in this district. Thank you so much for all the work you've done this year, for the work you've done throughout the years. I wish everyone a restful and safe summer. And again, just the thanks of a chair and a community.
Any other committee members? Do you want to say anything?
I want to thank you, Pat Mosley. I want to thank you as well. I've only been here for a short time, but yet I've been in the community serving on the transportation committee. So I'm very appreciative of you and everyone here on the board. And it is an exciting committee and interesting.
Well, that's great. It is. It is a very important one too.
Yes, absolutely. That's the excitement right there. I wish everyone well and have a safe and a wonderful summer.
Right.
I look forward to seeing everyone again, especially you, Pat.
Well, I'm not going anywhere. I've been reappointed. Now I'm back.
All right now.
Okay. Now I also, my co-chair, where is he? He needs to say something. I don't know where. You go to bed yet? No, he's not here.
Warren.
Where's Warren? I guess he must, maybe it lasted a little bit too long. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll see everybody in September. Take care.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Right.